You picked the wrong black woman to harass today. General Rebecca Morrison's voice remains steady as Officer Davis twists her arm behind her back. Metal cuffs snap around her wrist, too tight, drawing blood. Talking back to an officer, Captain Henderson looms over her. That's how people like you end up with problems. Morrison memorizes his badge number, his name tag, the mole above his left eyebrow. Check her for weapons, Henderson commands. Davis jabs her ribs during the search, finds her wallet, keys, phone. He tosses them into an evidence bag. Something funny? Henderson demands when he notices her calm expression. Morrison says nothing. They missed the military rock communicator hidden in her jacket lining. Get her in the car, Henderson barks. A night in holding should fix that attitude. They shove her head down, forcing her into the cruiser. They have no idea who they've just arrested. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead. The processing room smells of sweat and cleaning chemicals. Morrison stands perfectly still for her mugshot. The camera clicks. Name. The booking officer doesn't look up from his computer. Rebecca Morrison. Address. She provides her Oak Street address. The officer pauses, eyes narrowing. That's in Riverside Heights. His tone changes, recognizing the predominantly black neighborhood. Morrison presses her thumb against the fingerprint scanner. Black ink stains her skin. Behind her, Officers Henderson and Davis laugh by the water cooler. Another one from that neighborhood thinking she's special, Davis says, voice carrying deliberately. Acting like the checkpoint doesn't apply to her. Had to put her in her place, Henderson replies. These people need to learn. Morrison memorizes every word, every inflection, every face watching her processing. Phone call? She asks the booking officer. He points to the wall phone. One call, make it count. Morrison dials a number from memory, not her lawyer, not family. Operation Center, Pentagon, answers a crisp voice. Authorization code, Tango Delta 794, Morrison speaks clearly. Initiating protocol oversight Delta, location transmitting. A moment of silence. Confirmed, General Morrison. Response team deploying. Timeline, 43 minutes. Morrison hangs up as Councilman Frank Palmer storms into the station, his expensive suit and championship ring gleaming under the harsh lights. Another troublemaker? Palmer demands, looking through the glass at Morrison. Henderson nods. Just processing her now, sir. Good, Palmer says. These checkpoint resistors need consequences. The program is too important. Morrison is escorted to a holding cell. The door clangs shut. She sits on the metal bench, back straight, face composed. The clock on the wall reads 9:17 p.m. In exactly 43 minutes, everything will change. Sunset paints the sky orange over Riverside Heights 2 hours earlier. General Rebecca Morrison drives her modest sedan through familiar streets. The neighborhood transitions from predominantly black to the wealthier, whiter suburbs of Maplewood. Blue lights flash ahead. Police cruisers block the road. A checkpoint. Morrison slows, window already rolling down. She's done nothing wrong. This should take seconds. Officer Davis approaches. Flashlight beam sweeping across her face. License and registration. Morrison reaches slowly for her glove compartment. May I ask what this checkpoint is for? Officer Davis stiffens. Just routine. ID now. She hands over her driver's license. Davis studies it, flashlight lingering on her address. Riverside Heights resident, he says into his radio, requesting additional verification. Morrison notices his emphasis on her neighborhood. Is there a problem with my identification, officer? Wait here. Davis walks back to the cruiser, license in hand. Morrison watches through her rearview mirror. Davis shows her license to another officer. They both look at her car, laughing. Captain Henderson emerges from the command vehicle. Davis points at Morrison's car. Henderson nods, approaching with deliberate slowness. Step out of the vehicle. Ma'am. His tone carries no respect with the formality. May I ask why? My license is valid. Step out now. Henderson's hand rests on his holster. We're implementing enhanced search protocol. Morrison knows her rights. Enhanced search requires reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. What's your suspicion, Captain? Henderson's face hardens. Out of the car. Morrison complies, movements deliberate. I'd like to note that this appears to be selective enforcement. We decide what's selective, Henderson says. Hands on the hood. I decline consent to search my vehicle without probable cause, Morrison states calmly. Terry v. Ohio and Delaware v. Sprouse establish clear guidelines for— Look at the lawyer here, Davis mocks, moving closer. Thinks she knows the law. Morrison stands her ground. I'm familiar with my Fourth Amendment rights. Henderson steps closer. Your kind always want to make things difficult. My kind? Morrison raises an eyebrow. Troublemakers, Henderson clarifies, but his meaning hangs transparent in the air. Other drivers watch from their cars, some record with phones. Henderson notices, gesturing to another officer. Clear these vehicles through. No recordings. Morrison observes Officer Williams approaching cars, making people put phones away. She commits each face to memory, each badge number, each license plate. Last chance, Henderson says. Consent to search or face obstruction charges. I respectfully decline and request a supervisor, Morrison says. Her voice remains steady, professional. I am the supervisor. Henderson signals to Davis. Detain her. Davis grabs Morrison's arm, twisting it behind her back. The pain shoots through her shoulder. Stop resisting, Davis shouts, though she isn't resisting. I'm not resisting, Morrison says clearly, aware of creating an audio record. I'm complying under protest. Henderson steps closer. You don't tell us how to do our jobs. Morrison notices Davis's body camera. The red recording light blinks off. Your body camera appears to be malfunctioning, Officer Davis, she notes. Mind your own business. Davis tightens his grip. Morrison's military training kicks in. She could disable both officers in seconds, but that's not why she's here. Not tonight's mission. I'll be filing a formal complaint, she says instead. Henderson laughs. Good luck with that. Councilman Palmer personally oversees checkpoint operations. Your complaint goes straight to his trash can. Morrison's watch presses against her wrist. The military device captures every word, every admission. Evidence gathering continues. Search the car. Henderson orders another officer. Sir, without a warrant? Morrison begins. We have checkpoint authority under City Ordinance 27-9, Henderson interrupts, signed by the council last month. Morrison knows the ordinance, knows its constitutional flaws, knows exactly who pushed it through. Find anything? Henderson calls to the officer searching her car. Clean, sir. Henderson seems disappointed. Check under the seats. These Riverside people always hiding something. Morrison's fingers discreetly press a button on her watch. The GPS tracker activates. Pentagon systems now monitor her location in real time. Nothing. Sir, the officer reports. Henderson turns back to Morrison. Well, you're still interfering with a lawful checkpoint. That's obstruction. Citing constitutional protections is not obstruction, Morrison counters. And now arguing with an officer. Henderson nods to Davis. Cuff her. The metal cuffs bite into her wrists. Davis secures them too tight, deliberately. Rebecca Morrison, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice and resisting a lawful checkpoint inspection, Henderson recites, satisfaction in his voice. Morrison notices a young woman in a nearby car recording discreetly. Their eyes meet briefly. Morrison gives an imperceptible nod. You have the right to remain silent, Henderson continues. I'm aware of my Miranda rights, Captain, Morrison interrupts. I assume you're transporting me to the Maplewood station? Henderson pauses, thrown by her composure. That's right. I'll need my phone call when we arrive. You'll get what we decide to give you, Davis says, shoving her toward the cruiser. As they lead her away, Morrison glances at the checkpoint. Officer Williams turns away another Riverside Heights resident for additional screening. 3 cars with white drivers pass through without stopping. Pattern established. Evidence accumulating. Davis pushes her head down, forcing her into the back seat. Officer Davis, badge number 4572. That use of force is unnecessary and excessive, Morrison states. Her watch is recording. Shut up, Davis snaps, slamming the door. Through the window, Morrison watches Henderson speaking with another officer. He gestures toward Riverside Heights, laughs. The cruiser pulls away from the checkpoint. Morrison sits calmly in the back, mentally reviewing the Pentagon protocol she's just activated. The situation is proceeding exactly as anticipated. The interrogation room at Maplewood Station smells of stale coffee and floor cleaner. A single overhead light casts harsh shadows. The metal table is bolted to the floor. Morrison sits straight-backed in the uncomfortable chair. Her handcuffs remain tight. 2 hours have passed since her arrest. The door opens. Captain Henderson enters, carrying a thin folder and Morrison's confiscated belongings. He drops them on the table. Comfortable? His smile doesn't reach his eyes. Morrison doesn't respond. The less she says, the more they reveal. Henderson opens the folder. Rebecca Morrison, Riverside Heights address, no priors. He looks up. First time being educated about checkpoint compliance? I'd like to speak with an attorney. Soon enough. Henderson circles the table. We're just having a conversation first. I invoke my right to counsel. Morrison's voice remains level, precise. Henderson ignores her. See, we have a problem in this town. People who don't respect authority. People who think rules don't apply to them. He leans against the wall, studying her. Checkpoints keep Maplewood safe. Some folks don't like being checked. Those folks usually have something to hide. Morrison remains silent. Her military training included resistance to interrogation techniques. Henderson's amateur intimidation tactics wouldn't break a first-year cadet. Nothing to say? Henderson flips through her wallet. Interesting ID you've got here. He pulls out her military ID, studies it, snorts. Marine Corps General. 4 stars. He tosses it on the table. Nice fake. Adding impersonating military personnel to your charges. Morrison watches him carefully. That identification is authentic. Right. Henderson laughs. And I'm the Secretary of Defense. His phone buzzes. He checks the screen, nods slightly. Our concerned citizen is here, Henderson says, moving to the door. Someone wants to meet the latest checkpoint troublemaker. Morrison's photographic memory catalogs every procedural violation, every failed Miranda compliance, every civil rights infringement. Henderson leaves. Through the thin walls, Morrison hears a new voice, authoritative, impatient. Another one from that neighborhood? The voice must belong to Councilman Palmer. Yes, sir, Henderson responds. Gave us the usual constitutional speech. Had a fake military ID, too. Military? Palmer sounds interested. What branch? Marines. Claims to be a general. Henderson's laugh carries through the wall. Get what you need and process her, Palmer says. Make an example. These checkpoint resistors are undermining the whole program. Morrison notices the one-way glass, feels Palmer watching from the other side. The door opens again. Henderson returns with Officer Davis. Let's try again, Henderson slaps a form on the table. Sign this confession to obstruction. Take a misdemeanor charge and you'll be out by morning. Morrison studies the document without touching it. I'll need my attorney present before signing anything. Davis steps forward. Captain asked you nicely. And I respectfully declined, Morrison replies. Henderson nods to Davis, who moves behind Morrison's chair, his presence meant to intimidate. You people from Riverside Heights think you're special, Henderson says. Think the rules don't apply. But Councilman Palmer's checkpoint program has cut crime in Maplewood by 30%. By targeting specific neighborhoods? Morrison asks. Henderson's expression hardens. by enforcing the law where it needs enforcing. Selective enforcement isn't legal enforcement, Morrison says. Davis places heavy hands on her shoulders. You should listen to the captain. Morrison doesn't react to the physical intimidation. I believe this interview is over until my counsel arrives. Henderson collects her belongings, intentionally dropping her military ID on the floor. He steps on it as he walks around the table. This little military costume doesn't impress me, he sneers, picking up the ID. Though I admire the attention to detail, 4 stars, ambitious fake. He tosses the ID back on the table. Davis increases pressure on Morrison's shoulders. We've got all night, Henderson says. Plenty of time for you to reconsider that signature. A sharp knock interrupts. The door opens immediately. Detective Marcus Chen stands in the doorway. His expression shifts from professional to confused as he takes in the scene. Captain, Chen says carefully. A moment outside? Henderson hesitates, then nods to Davis. Watch her. The door closes behind them. Through the wall, Morrison hears urgent whispers. The conversation grows heated. Someone knocks urgently on the interrogation room door. The door opens. Detective Chen enters, followed by a visibly agitated Captain Henderson. Chen, mid-30s with observant eyes, carries himself differently than the other officers. His badge hangs from a chain around his neck. His suit, while department issue, fits properly. Officer Davis, you're needed at the front desk, Chen says. Davis looks to Henderson, who nods reluctantly. Davis leaves, closing the door firmly behind him. Chen approaches the table. He picks up Morrison's military ID, examining it closely. Captain, this ID has proper security features, Chen says. The holographic seal, microprinting, UV watermarks, all authentic military issue. Henderson scoffs. It's a good fake. No, sir. Chen places the ID gently on the table. I served before joining the department. This is genuine. Henderson's confidence wavers momentarily. So she stole a military ID. Add it to the charges. Morrison watches the dynamic between them. Chen represents something rare, integrity within a corrupted system. Ma'am, Chen addresses Morrison directly. May I ask your name and rank? General Rebecca Morrison, United States Marine Corps. Chen straightens instinctively. Military bearing doesn't fade with time. And what brings you to Maplewood, General? Before Morrison can answer, Henderson interrupts. Detective, she's being processed for obstruction and checkpoint evasion. Her occupation is irrelevant. Sir, if she's active military, we have jurisdictional protocols to follow, Chen counters. Henderson steps closer to Chen. I'm handling this case. Captain, department policy requires verification of military credentials, Chen persists. Section 14 of our procedural manual specifically states, I know the manual, Henderson snaps. Then you know we're already in violation of proper procedure. Chen doesn't back down. No attorney present despite request. Continued questioning after rights invocation. Extended detention without processing. Henderson's jaw tightens. Detective, remember your place. My place is ensuring department procedures are followed, Chen replies evenly. He turns back to Morrison's ID, examining the rank insignia. His eyes widen. Sir, Chen whispers, these are 4 stars. So? 4 stars is the highest rank in the Marine Corps. Chen looks at Morrison with new understanding. There are only a handful in the entire military. Henderson's confidence cracks further. It's still a fake. The interrogation room door swings open. Councilman Palmer enters without knocking, his tailored suit and signet ring project authority and wealth. Captain, what's the delay? Palmer demands. I thought this was routine processing. His eyes fall on Morrison. He assesses her with practiced political calculation. Councilman Palmer, Chen says, we have a situation. This woman appears to be a high-ranking military officer. Palmer scoffs. Based on what? Military identification consistent with a Marine Corps general, Chen explains. We need to verify through proper channels before proceeding. Detective, Palmer checks Chen's nameplate. Your concern for procedure is noted. Now let the captain handle this. Chen stands his ground. Sir, with respect, if we've detained a military general improperly, the department faces serious repercussions. If, Palmer emphasizes. A remarkably big if. He turns to Henderson. Captain, handle the paperwork and process her. Detective Chen, you're needed elsewhere. Sir, Chen protests. Standard protocol requires... Standard protocol is what I say it is, Palmer interrupts. The checkpoint program operates under special city ordinance, my ordinance. Morrison watches Chen carefully. She sees the moment his professional ethics confront political reality. Councilman, Chen says carefully, may I at least verify her identity through military channels? A simple phone call? Palmer studies Chen. You're new to Maplewood, aren't you, Detective? Transferred 6 months ago, sir. Then let me explain how things work here. Palmer steps closer. The checkpoint program is essential to Maplewood's safety and property values. Occasional complaints are expected. They're handled quietly and quickly. By violating rights? Chen asks. Palmer's smile turns cold. By maintaining order. Don't overthink your role, Detective. The phone on the wall suddenly rings. All three turn toward it. Henderson answers. Captain Henderson. He listens, frowning. What kind of call? His expression shifts from annoyance to confusion. From where? Henderson's face pales slightly. He hangs up. What is it? Palmer demands. Front desk has received calls asking about a General Morrison, Henderson says slowly. From whom? Palmer asks. The Pentagon. The room falls silent. Palmer and Henderson exchange glances. Probably her friends playing games, Palmer dismisses. Captain, finish processing and... Sir, Henderson interrupts. They mentioned her by name and rank. They knew she was here. Palmer turns to Morrison, reassessing. Chen's eyes widen at the 4 stars on her ID card. Sir, do you realize who we've arrested? Palmer silences him with a gesture. Captain, verify this properly, now. Henderson exits quickly. Palmer studies Morrison with new caution. If you are military, Palmer says, you should understand the importance of security checkpoints. I understand constitutional rights, Morrison replies, and selective enforcement. Palmer's political smile returns. General, if that's what you are, surely we can resolve this misunderstanding amicably. The phone rings again. Henderson answers from outside. His voice carries through the door. Yes, sir. Yes, she's here. No, sir, I understand, sir. Palmer watches the door with growing concern. Henderson returns, visibly shaken. That was Colonel Anderson from the Pentagon Military Police. They've confirmed her identity. Excellent, Palmer recovers quickly. Then release the general immediately with our apologies for the misunderstanding. There's more, Henderson says quietly. They're sending representatives here now. Palmer's political mask slips. What representatives? A military investigation unit, Henderson says. They specifically mentioned your checkpoint program, sir. Palmer turns to Morrison, understanding dawns in his eyes. This wasn't a coincidence, he realizes. Your presence at the checkpoint... Morrison meets his gaze steadily. The station's front desk phone begins to ring. The persistent ringing echoes through the station. Multiple lines now, phones lighting up across desks. Palmer moves to the interrogation room door, closing it firmly. His political composure cracks further. What exactly is happening here? He demands. Morrison remains silent. Her mission doesn't require explanation. Henderson's radio crackles. Captain, we have multiple incoming calls. Pentagon, DOJ, Governor's Office. Handle it, Palmer snaps. Sir, Henderson responds. They're specifically asking about General Morrison. Chen watches this exchange with growing awareness. He moves closer to Morrison. Would you like those handcuffs removed, General? He asks quietly. Palmer glares at him. Detective, step back. Sir, she's been confirmed as a military general, Chen argues. Continuing to detain her is my decision, Palmer interrupts. He points at Morrison. Whatever game you're playing ends now. Morrison finally speaks. This isn't a game, Councilman. It's an investigation. Investigation? Palmer laughs. But uncertainty edges his voice. Into what? Systematic civil rights violations through discriminatory checkpoint practices, Morrison states. Targeting minority neighborhoods, violating Fourth Amendment protections, implementing quotas based on race and district. Palmer's face hardens. Ridiculous accusations. Documented accusations, Morrison corrects. Henderson's radio crackles again. Captain, military vehicles approaching the station. Palmer's political calculation visibly shifts to self-preservation. He turns to Henderson. Release her now. Claim miscommunication. Blame the officers who made the arrest. Henderson hesitates. Sir, Davis followed your checkpoint protocols exactly. Then blame the protocols, Palmer hisses. Just contain this. Chen steps forward, removing a small key from his pocket. He unlocks Morrison's handcuffs. My apologies, General, he says formally. Palmer watches this with growing alarm. Detective, prepare the necessary paperwork for the General's immediate release. Chen nods, but makes no move to leave. Now, Detective, Palmer insists. In a moment, sir. Chen turns to Morrison. General, may I ask what happens next? Morrison rubs her wrists where the cuffs bit into her skin. Justice happens next, Detective. Chen looks between them. 6 months? Morrison nods. The Pentagon has been monitoring Maplewood's checkpoint program since its implementation, gathering evidence, building a case. She checks her watch. And now that case is complete. Henderson's radio crackles once more. Captain, 3 black SUVs have entered the parking lot, military personnel disembarking. Palmer moves to the door. I need to make some calls. Control the narrative. Your calls won't help, Councilman, Morrison says. This investigation has federal oversight. Palmer's hand freezes on the doorknob. The political mask shatters completely. Chen steps closer to Morrison. He discreetly slides a USB drive across the table. Internal Affairs has been looking into the checkpoint program, he whispers. But we kept hitting roadblocks. Administrative obstruction? Morrison asks quietly. Evidence of direct interference? Chen nods. Everything I could gather. Checkpoint locations, arrest demographics, internal communications. It's time, General, he whispers. The interrogation room door swings open. A military officer in full-dress uniform enters, followed by 2 MPs. The Silver Eagle insignia identifies him as Colonel Anderson. Colonel Anderson surveys the room, his gaze stopping on Morrison. General Morrison, he salutes crisply. Colonel. Morrison returns the salute. Thank you for the prompt response. Of course, ma'am. Anderson turns to the others. I'm Colonel Anderson, Pentagon Investigative Services. These are my associates. Palmer steps forward, political smile reinstated. Councilman Frank Palmer, Maplewood City Council. This has been an unfortunate misunderstanding. Sir, Anderson interrupts. Please remain in the station. My team will have questions for you shortly. Palmer's smile falters. Questions? I assure you I had no knowledge of the General's improper detention. Noted, Anderson says without inflection. He turns to Henderson. Captain, secure this room for the General's use. We'll need your main conference room for our team. Henderson hesitates. Colonel, this is a police station. You don't have jurisdiction? I have direct authorization from the Secretary of Defense, Anderson cuts him off. Your cooperation is not optional. The station fills with activity. Military personnel set up equipment in the conference room. Computer specialists access the station's systems. Evidence collection teams secure records. Palmer watches with growing alarm. This response seems excessive for a simple detention issue, he protests. Morrison stands, straightening her civilian clothes. This isn't about my detention, Councilman. It's about what my detention represents. She turns to Colonel Anderson. Status report? Teams deployed as ordered, General. Evidence preservation protocols in effect. Pentagon liaison briefing the governor now. Palmer attempts to leave. Two MPs, politely but firmly, direct him back. This is outrageous, he protests. I have rights. Yes, Morrison agrees. Everyone does. That's precisely the point. Morrison and Anderson move to the conference room, now transformed into a command center. Digital displays show checkpoint locations throughout Maplewood, all strategically positioned between Riverside Heights and wealthy neighborhoods. Chen follows, carrying case files. General, I've brought the internal documentation you requested. Thank you, Detective, Morrison says. Your assistance is invaluable. Palmer and Henderson are escorted in, directed to seats away from each other. Davis joins them, confusion evident on his face. Morrison stands at the head of the table. The room falls silent. Gentlemen, she begins, 6 months ago, the Pentagon received multiple complaints about a police checkpoint program targeting minority neighborhoods in Maplewood. Initial review suggested Fourth Amendment violations. Further investigation revealed something more disturbing. She activates the main display. A map appears, showing checkpoint arrest statistics. Red dots cluster exclusively in minority neighborhoods. Selective enforcement, Morrison continues. Checkpoint stops resulting in searches, 89% minority drivers. Arrests from those stops, 94% minority citizens. Henderson shifts uncomfortably. Crime statistics justify deployment. Traffic violations occur at equal rates across demographics, Morrison interrupts. Yet your checkpoint program produces these results. She changes the display. Internal police emails appear. Captain Henderson, this is your message to officers. Dated March 12th. Focus on vehicles from Riverside Heights. Higher yield for arrests. Henderson pales. That's taken out of context. Context is provided by your arrest quotas, Morrison replies, displaying another document, specifically targeting Riverside Heights residents. Palmer interrupts. General, these operational details were handled by the police department. As councilman, I merely approved the program concept. Morrison turns to him. Is that so? She nods to Colonel Anderson, who displays a new document. Palmer's signature appears at the bottom of detailed checkpoint operating procedures. This directive specifies targeting specific neighborhoods, Morrison notes. Your signature authorizes racial profiling, Councilman. Palmer's political facade cracks completely. This is a witch hunt. This is accountability, Morrison corrects. She turns to Chen. Detective, please share what you found during your internal investigation. Chen steps forward. 6 months ago, I noticed troubling patterns in checkpoint arrests. When I raised concerns through proper channels, I was reassigned. I continued documenting discrepancies. He opens his file. Checkpoint officers were instructed to use different standards based on driver's race and residence. Riverside Heights vehicles received heightened scrutiny regardless of driving behavior. Henderson interrupts. That's not. Your body cam footage contradicts you, Captain, Morrison says. She plays a video. Henderson appears, instructing officers before a checkpoint deployment. Remember, Riverside cars get the full treatment. Make the stop stick. Palmer stands abruptly. I need to contact my attorney. You'll have that opportunity, Morrison assures him, after we complete this interview. She slides a folder across the table. These are just from the last 6 months. Captain Henderson's face drains of color as he opens the file. The investigation continues into the night. Military personnel process evidence. Technical teams analyze department servers. Legal advisors document violations. In a quiet corner of the conference room, Morrison finds Chen reviewing files. Detective, she says, joining him, your assistance has been crucial. Chen looks up, exhaustion etched on his face. I should have done more sooner. You did what you could within a corrupt system, Morrison says. That takes courage. Chen closes the file. When I transferred to Maplewood, I had no idea. The checkpoint program was already established, presented as innovative community policing. When did you realize the truth? Morrison asks. Chen hesitates, pain flashing across his features. 3 months ago, he finally says. My brother came to visit. He was stopped at a checkpoint, detained for hours. No charges, just intimidation. He stares at his hands. He's a pediatric surgeon, drives a nice car, but they only saw a black man in the wrong neighborhood. Exactly, Morrison finishes. Chen nods. I filed complaints, used proper channels, evidence disappeared, witnesses changed statements, the system protected itself. That's why I'm here, Morrison says. Sometimes the system needs external pressure to change. Why you specifically? Chen asks. Why did the Pentagon send a 4-star general for a local police investigation? Because some issues transcend jurisdiction, Morrison explains. Civil rights violations impact national security, erode public trust, undermine the Constitution we're all sworn to protect. Chen absorbs this. What happens to the officers? To Palmer? Justice, Morrison says simply. Due process, the same rights they denied others. And the people they wrongfully arrested, the lives they damaged? Part of the remedy includes case reviews, expungements, compensation. Morrison meets his eyes. Your brother's case will be among them. Chen wipes his eyes quickly. This isn't just about today, is it, General? No, she answers. It's about every day before this and every day that comes after. Chen straightens, professional composure returning. What's our next step? Evidence compilation, Morrison says. Your testimony will be crucial before the federal grand jury. I'm ready, Chen affirms. For the first time since her arrest, Morrison smiles. I know. Dawn breaks over Maplewood Police Station. The parking lot fills with government vehicles. FBI agents join military investigators. Justice Department attorneys arrive with subpoenas. Inside the conference room, the atmosphere shifts from investigation to prosecution. Evidence boards cover the walls. Computer screens display data analysis. Legal teams prepare documents. Captain Henderson sits alone, separated from his officers. Palmer's attorney arrived hours ago, whispering urgent advice ignored by his client. Colonel Anderson enters with a new team. General, the Secretary of Defense sends his regards. The investigation has been elevated to Joint Task Force status. Morrison nods. Excellent. Let's proceed with the full briefing. The room fills with senior officials, military, federal, state. The governor's representative sits near the Attorney General's deputy. Morrison takes position at the head of the table. The room falls silent. Ladies and gentlemen, she begins, what started as a civil rights monitoring operation has revealed systematic constitutional violations and abuse of power. Today, I present comprehensive evidence in 3 categories: visual documentation, audio recordings, and written records. She activates the main display. First, visual evidence. Dash cam footage appears. A vehicle from Riverside Heights stopped at a checkpoint. The driver, professional and polite, is ordered from the car without cause, searched without consent. When he questions the legality, he's arrested for obstruction. This pattern repeats across hundreds of documented stops, Morrison explains. She shows split-screen footage. White drivers pass through checkpoints with cursory checks. Black drivers from Riverside Heights face extended detentions, searches, and frequent arrests. Checkpoint camera systems captured clear racial disparities in enforcement, Morrison continues. White drivers were stopped at 8% frequency, black drivers at 82%. Palmer interrupts. Selective editing can create false patterns. These are your department's unaltered recordings, Councilman, Morrison replies. Complete timestamps intact. She displays a heat map of checkpoint placements. Checkpoints were exclusively positioned to intercept residents leaving minority neighborhoods, particularly Riverside Heights. Henderson shifts uncomfortably. Strategic deployment based on traffic patterns was contradicted by your own traffic study? Morrison interrupts, displaying the document, which recommended different locations entirely. She moves to a new screen. Second category, audio evidence. Morrison activates an audio file. Henderson's voice fills the room. Councilman wants more arrests from Riverside. Make it happen, Officer Davis responds. Even without cause? Find cause, Henderson replies. Broken tail light, failure to signal, get them out of the car, you'll find something. Palmer stands. That recording could be anyone. Voice pattern analysis confirms Captain Henderson and Officer Davis. Morrison replies. Recorded during official briefings. She plays another recording. Palmer's voice now. The checkpoint program serves two purposes. Public safety is what we tell the press. Property values is why we're really doing it. Keep the element where it belongs, in Riverside, not in our neighborhoods. Palmer sinks back into his chair. My military device recorded our entire interaction last night, Morrison explains, including unguarded comments when you thought I couldn't hear. The federal officials exchange glances. The evidence mounts beyond dispute. Finally, Morrison continues, documentary evidence. The screen displays internal emails, text messages, and official memoranda. Henderson to officers. Use checkpoint quota system as discussed. Palmer wants numbers up in Riverside. Department statistics appear. Arrest rates by race, search rates by neighborhood, conviction outcomes by demographic. The data reveals unmistakable discriminatory patterns. Checkpoint stops led to arrests for black drivers at 7 times the rate of white drivers, Morrison explains, for identical violations. She displays arrest reports side by side, same violation, different races, different outcomes. But the most damning evidence comes from the program's origin, Morrison says. She reveals city planning documents, property developer communications with Palmer, financial records. Councilman Palmer received substantial contributions from developers looking to revitalize Riverside Heights, Morrison explains. Their development strategy required displacing current residents. The documents tell the story. Checkpoint harassment designed to pressure Riverside residents to leave, property values driven down, developers positioned to purchase at depressed prices. Civil rights violations driven by financial motivation, Morrison concludes. Palmer's attorney whispers urgently in his ear. Palmer ignores him. This is fabricated, Palmer insists. A politically motivated attack. The evidence speaks for itself, Morrison replies. And now, the final piece. She nods to Chen, who connects his USB drive to the system. Detective Chen conducted his own internal investigation, Morrison explains, documenting checkpoint operations from within. Chen stands. I collected evidence of quotas targeting specific neighborhoods, documented systematic civil rights violations, recorded instructions to ignore constitutional protections. His files appear on screen, officer performance reviews tied to Riverside Heights arrest numbers, checkpoint schedules targeting black churches, community centers, and businesses. Most critically, Chen continues, I discovered that complaints about checkpoint practices were systematically buried. He displays the evidence, complaint forms marked resolved, without investigation, witness statements altered, video evidence deleted. When residents attempted to use proper channels for redress, Chen explains, the system was designed to silence them. The room falls silent as officials review the overwhelming evidence. This operation wasn't about my personal detention, Morrison explains. I volunteered to test the system directly after months of intelligence gathering. My experience matched exactly what our investigation predicted. She turns to Palmer. Your checkpoint program violated the Fourth Amendment, targeted citizens by race, obstructed justice when challenged. The Justice Department official stands. We've seen enough. This evidence supports federal civil rights charges. Palmer looks around desperately. This is a misunderstanding. The program had legitimate public safety goals. The evidence contradicts that claim, Morrison responds. Palmer attempts one last defense. General Morrison intentionally provoked officers, created this situation. I simply drove through a public checkpoint, Morrison replies calmly. My rights were violated because of who I am and where I live, exactly like hundreds of other citizens. She displays the final document. This is the classified Pentagon investigation authorization, signed by the Secretary of Defense, launched after multiple military personnel reported discriminatory treatment at your checkpoints. The reality of his situation finally hits Palmer. He turns to his attorney in panic. The investigation is complete, Morrison announces. Federal prosecutors will now determine specific charges. FBI agents approach Henderson, Davis, and other implicated officers. Justice Department officials surround Palmer. Frank Palmer, you're under federal investigation for civil rights violations, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice, the lead federal prosecutor announces. Palmer stands abruptly. I need to make a statement to the press. Control the narrative. He moves toward the door, where military police stand ready. Palmer attempts to leave through the back door, where military police wait. 1 week later, a congressional hearing room on Capitol Hill fills with observers, press, and officials. General Rebecca Morrison sits at the witness table in full-dress uniform. 4 stars gleam on her shoulders. Medals and ribbons testify to decades of service. The committee chairperson calls the session to order. This hearing on civil rights enforcement in local policing will now begin. General Morrison, thank you for your testimony today. Morrison adjusts her microphone. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee. Please summarize the Pentagon's investigation into the Maplewood checkpoint program, the chairperson requests. 6 months ago, the Department of Defense received multiple complaints from military personnel subjected to discriminatory treatment at police checkpoints in Maplewood, Morrison begins. Initial investigation revealed a pattern of constitutional violations specifically targeting minority neighborhoods. She presents the evidence methodically: the discriminatory checkpoint placements, the racial disparities in enforcement, the financial motivations behind the program. Our investigation confirms systematic Fourth Amendment violations, Morrison continues. Citizens were detained, searched, and arrested without probable cause. When they attempted to assert their rights, they faced increased charges. A committee member interrupts. Why did this require Pentagon involvement rather than Justice Department? The initial complaints came from military personnel, Morrison explains. However, we quickly discovered that civilians faced identical treatment. We coordinated with Justice Department officials to ensure comprehensive investigation. Morrison displays the checkpoint map. The program strategically isolated the predominantly black community of Riverside Heights. Residents faced constant harassment when traveling to work, school, or shopping. The evidence unfolds on screen: arrest statistics by race, search rates by neighborhood, conviction patterns showing clear discrimination. Most concerning, Morrison continues, was that the program operated with explicit city approval. Councilman Palmer personally directed police to target specific demographics. Another committee member leans forward. And the current status of those involved? Councilman Palmer faces federal civil rights charges, Morrison reports. Captain Henderson and 5 officers have been indicted. The checkpoint program has been permanently terminated. She pauses, then adds, most importantly, all convictions stemming from unconstitutional checkpoints are under review for expungement. The chairperson nods. General, your decision to personally test the checkpoint system was unconventional. What motivated this approach? Sometimes systems only reveal their true nature through direct experience, Morrison explains. As a black woman and a military officer, I was uniquely positioned to document the disparity between how citizens should be treated and how they were actually treated. A supportive committee member speaks. I'd like to recognize Detective Marcus Chen, whose internal investigation provided crucial evidence. Detective, please stand. Chen rises from the audience. The room applauds his courage. Detective Chen risked his career to document these violations, Morrison acknowledges. His ethical commitment represents the best of law enforcement. The chairperson turns serious. What changes do you recommend to prevent similar abuses nationwide? First, independent oversight of checkpoint operations, Morrison suggests. Second, mandatory data collection on stops by demographic. Third, clear consequences for departments showing discriminatory patterns. She looks directly at the committee. Most importantly, we must recognize that constitutional rights aren't optional. They don't depend on race, neighborhood, or economic status. The hearing continues with questions and testimony. Morrison provides detailed responses, always returning to the core principle: equal protection under law. As the session concludes, the chairperson makes an announcement. Based on this investigation, we're introducing legislation establishing federal standards for checkpoint operations. The Equitable Enforcement Act will require transparency, accountability, and constitutional compliance. Outside the hearing room, Morrison meets with Chen. The committee was impressed with your evidence, she tells him. The FBI has offered you a position with their Civil Rights Division. Chen smiles. I've accepted. Change sometimes requires working from the inside. And your brother? Morrison asks. His record has been expunged, Chen confirms. He's helping organize the class action lawsuit for other checkpoint victims? Morrison nods approvingly. Justice works slowly, but it does work when good people insist upon it. When good people insist upon it, Chen echoes. A community center in Riverside Heights bustles with activity. Residents gather for a town hall meeting with their new police chief. Morrison, now in civilian clothes, sits quietly in the back. She watches as Chen, no longer a detective but a community liaison, facilitates dialogue between residents and police. The new chief announces reformed policies. Body cameras always activated, stop data publicly available, community oversight board with real authority. After the meeting, an elderly resident approaches Morrison. You're the general, aren't you? The one who brought down those checkpoints? Morrison smiles. I just helped expose the truth. You did more than that, the woman says. My grandson was arrested at one of those checkpoints, lost his scholarship because of it. Now his record's cleared and he's back in college. I'm glad to hear that, Morrison responds. One thing I don't understand, the woman continues. You're a general. You could have used your rank from the beginning. Why go through the arrest? Because most people can't use rank or privilege to protect their rights, Morrison explains. The system should work equally for everyone, not just those with status. The woman nods thoughtfully. My grandson wants to be a lawyer now, says somebody needs to know the law to protect the community. He's right, Morrison agrees. Knowing your rights is the first step to defending them. Outside, Chen waits to drive Morrison to the airport. Returning to the Pentagon? He asks. Yes, Morrison confirms. But our civil rights oversight won't end with Maplewood. This case established a template for identifying similar patterns nationwide. The checkpoint is gone, Chen observes as they drive past its former location. But the work continues. Morrison looks out at the community, families walking freely, residents no longer afraid of arbitrary enforcement. This is what security actually looks like, she says. Not checkpoints and harassment, just people living their lives with dignity and equal protection under the law. Deep in the Pentagon, General Morrison stands before a wall of monitors displaying checkpoint data from cities nationwide. Colonel Anderson enters with fresh reports. Implementation of the new oversight protocols is proceeding as scheduled, General. 17 departments have voluntarily reformed checkpoint practices. And the resistors? Morrison asks. Justice Department has opened investigations into 9 jurisdictions showing similar patterns to Maplewood. Morrison studies the data. Red flags highlight familiar patterns, checkpoints concentrated around minority neighborhoods, disparate enforcement statistics, complaint suppression. The Maplewood model is proving effective, Anderson notes, identifying indicators of systemic discrimination before they become entrenched. Morrison nods. And our military personnel reports? Down 63%, Anderson confirms. The warning system works. Service members report potential civil rights issues directly to our office now. Morrison's secure phone chimes. A text from Chen. Palmer sentenced today, 5 years federal, restitution ordered for checkpoint victims, justice delayed but delivered. Her assistant enters. General, your next appointment is here. A young black woman in Air Force uniform enters. Lieutenant Sarah Williams, recently detained at a checkpoint outside Barksdale Air Force Base. Lieutenant, Morrison greets her. Thank you for reporting your experience. Lieutenant Williams salutes crisply. I wasn't sure if it warranted attention until I heard about your Maplewood operation. Every data point matters, Morrison assures her. Your report matches others from that jurisdiction. Williams straightens. What happens now, ma'am? Now, Morrison explains, we follow the evidence, document the pattern, ensure constitutional protections apply equally to everyone. She moves to the window, looking out at the Pentagon courtyard, where service members from all backgrounds serve a common mission. The uniform doesn't protect us from discrimination, Morrison tells Williams, but it does give us the responsibility to uphold the Constitution for ourselves and for every citizen. Williams nods in understanding. That's why I reported it, not just for me. Exactly, Morrison agrees. Systems only change when good people recognize injustice and take action. She returns to the data displays, to the work that continues. No checkpoints, Morrison says. No double standards, just equal justice under law. The map of America glows on the screen before her. Each indicator represents work to be done, communities waiting for fairness, rights requiring protection. General Rebecca Morrison gets back to work. Did that story grab your attention? Hit that like button right now to support more hard-hitting justice thrillers like this one. We deliver powerful, voice-only narratives that keep you engaged whether you're commuting, working out, or just relaxing. Our signature storytelling style brings you into intense moments of injustice and the satisfying path to accountability. Subscribe to never miss our weekly uploads featuring gripping justice thrillers, stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges, powerful narratives with unexpected twists, premium voice-only content perfect for multitasking. Turn on notifications so you'll know immediately when we drop our next story. Your support helps us create more content that matters. Justice speaks volumes.